That's one of my earliest cakes from circa 2018. It said you don't have to justify your abortion to anyone. And it took me a long time to believe that, a long time after I had my own abortion, to believe that I didn't have to come up with any kind of justification. It took a long time to unlearn that, even for me, myself. It sounds unimaginable to me now, but it was the case.
Hey, welcome to Meet Me at the Spot, where pleasure meets education. This is the space where we get real about sex, relationships, and everything in between. I'm your host, Holly Eckelberger, and I'm a longtime sexual health educator, activist, and content creator. I will be your guide through conversations that blend curiosity, pleasure, and truth. Together with some amazing guests, we'll break down stigma, celebrate bodies, and learn how to embrace sexual health with confidence and joy. So get comfy because it's time for the show to get started. Welcome back to another episode of Meet Me at the Spot, where pleasure meets education. I'm your host, Holly, and this week I am so excited for my guest, Becca Rea-Tucker. Becca, who uses she, her pronouns, is a writer, baker, and reproductive justice advocate. She is the author of The Abortion Companion and Baking by Feel. Her work explores bodily autonomy, stigma, food, joy, and shame, and has been featured in Lit Hub, Marie Claire UK, Vogue Italy, Oxford Review of Books, and more. She is the creator of At the Sweet Feminist, a platform she built from the ground up. She lives in Austin, Texas with her family. I am excited to share this conversation. I have been following Becca for a very long time on social media. I'm so excited that her new book, The Abortion Companion, is out, and I knew I had to talk to her and learn all about the book. Please go buy the book, support Becca and her work. You can buy it in print or in audiobook version as well. So without further ado, let's jump into my chat with Becca. Welcome, Becca, to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I will say before we kind of get into our conversation, as a little background information for the listeners, I have just been so obsessed with all of your social media content and the information that you put out there. And I knew I had to have you on the podcast. And when your book came out, which we'll talk about, I just knew this was the right time. The stars were aligned for us. So as we jump in, I always like to ask my guests, what kind of got you started in this work that you do? So being the sweet feminist online, what got you started into all that?
Yeah, so I have always liked to bake. I learned to bake from my grandma. So the first half of the Sweet Feminist, the cake part, that's where that comes from. And the reproductive justice advocacy stuff comes from my own experience having an abortion as a college student in Iowa. So it's both. It's a mix of things.
If folks don't know Becca's social media, I know the way that I got introduced to you was seeing your posts, your amazingly adorable cakes with super pro-abortion messages and hella feminist messages written on them. And I was like, this is the coolest way to get a message across. It's so cute and wholesome, but hell yeah.
I tell people you don't have to choose a lane. I like baking and I like repro advocacy, and I'm going to do them both together. And I think using cakes, dessert in particular, is particularly disarming for people. If you're scrolling through your feed, you see this brightly colored pink cake, and then it says pro-abortion. Maybe you stop to engage with the caption after seeing it.
Yes. Yeah, though, and it worked for me for sure. Because it is. I like how you put that. It's very disarming. And it's also I'm intrigued. It really just grabs you in, all the bright colors of the sprinkles and everything on it is really lovely. I love how you said too, you don't have to just pick one lane. I think it's very fascinating because a lot of folks that I talk to who are, pro-abortion, like feminists and things like that, don't always think to combine multiple things that they love at the same time.
Sure. It is hard. I mean, it's hard in some ways because you have to make a case to people like this actually does make sense together. Like we've always used food as sites of community and sites of resistance, especially women. So there's like a long history for specifically the baking and the advocacy stuff. But I mean, it's hard you have to tell people who you are, what to do with your work. So that is the challenge with splitting it. But I think it makes, my work more resilient, me more resilient, having, multiple things to sort of play with.
Yeah. No, I love that. And as far as like your social media presence, you share a lot of really, really great content. Like, I always feel like that little weirdo. And like, you know how the algorithm works. Once you like someone's post, like it shows you like all of their posts all the time. And I'm always like.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that because, I've been on Instagram as a sweet feminist for almost a decade. And so my engagement used to be super, super high. Now, like anybody who's talking, I'm sure anybody that's talking about abortion or repro or sex ed or anything like that is severely suppressed on Meta most of the time. And that's sort of why I actually decided to write my book, The Abortion Companion, because the internet isn't a stable place for this info. And so I wanted it to be compiled in like a central, tangible location. And I mean, they can burn books too, but I don't know. Maybe it would take more work than the algorithm suppressing me.
That is so true. And it's, something that has come up with almost all of my guests for the past several months. At least it is a topic of conversation, in that conversations around abortion, conversations around comprehensive sex education, all of these important topics that we know are very important, that are evidence-based, they're medically accurate, all of this good stuff is all being suppressed on every platform possible. And so it's so hard to make content in general. It's difficult to make content in general. And then to make content that people are going to see and be exposed to on a consistent basis is impossible.
Exactly. And another good thing about it being a book is that there's so much anti-abortion messaging out there, like on billboards, everywhere. Like we don't even notice it anymore sometimes because it's so prevalent. So I really wanted to get a visual affirmation out there. So that's part of my work as well. It's like people need to see affirming messaging, like unapologetic, affirming pro-abortion messaging. And so like my dream for the book would be for it to like sit on a shelf in a therapist's office or in a high school counselor's office, so they know that like this is an affirming place to talk about your abortion experience.
There is a lot of anti-abortion messaging out there all over, like on social media, but I see it on billboards. And if you're not really like in tune with what is going on around reproductive justice, kind of information, you may not actually, I feel like a lot of people may not actually even realize it's anti-abortion
Sure.
propaganda, to call it what it is.
So much of the stigma is so deeply ingrained that we don't even notice that, like, oh, that's not my values, that's not my own thoughts, that's just what I've been told about abortion and people who have abortions.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I want to know all about the book. All the ins and outs, like, you talked a little bit about kind of what led you to write it, but if you want to expand a little bit more, like what brought you to write the book, The Abortion Companion?
Yeah, so first I'll talk about who it's for. So the
Yeah.
book is for people who have abortions and the people who love us. So it's someone, who had an abortion 30 years ago and has never been told that they're not going to hell. It's for someone that has an appointment at a clinic tomorrow. I was able to record an audiobook version for those more acute situations, and it's my own voice, which is nice. And it's also for people who will have abortions in the future, because I think one of my one of my primary goals is to sort of get ahead of the anti-abortion stigma. So people who grow up with these affirming messages won't have to unravel so much shame and stigma going into their own abortion experiences. And the book is considered niche, even though it's not. We know that 1 in 4 people who can get pregnant in the US will have an abortion in their lifetime. And so, this isn't a niche topic at all, but it is sort of categorized that way. But my whole point is that this is not niche. It's crazy that we haven't had something like this before.
Absolutely. And that's really great because, like you said, there is so much shame and stigma around abortion. And, I feel like folks who have an abortion go through an array of emotions, from like relieved, happy, to grieving, and some sort of sadness, to anger, to anything in between. And maybe even not like being able to identify what that feeling is that they feel, because it can be a lot for somebody, and for somebody it can be like, it really wasn't that serious for me.
Yeah,
It wasn't that big deal.
exactly. Exactly. That's something I've learned, talking to so many people about their abortion experience, is that there isn't a standard abortion experience, and any feelings you have about it are okay. And those feelings might change over time. And wherever you're at right now is absolutely okay. And the book is written to meet people wherever they're at, regardless of the specific feelings that you're feeling. But it's important to note that like other similar, I would say that like sarcastically, they're not that similar, but other resources that are, listed in the same category on Amazon rely really heavily on shame, and they demand remorse as a condition of support. And so the abortion companion is different because you don't need to perform any kind of emotion for me. It's just wherever you're at is completely fine.
I love the other part that you mentioned too about who this is for, in thinking about people who know and love and support somebody who is having an abortion, has had an abortion, will have an abortion at some point in their life. Because one of the biggest things that I see a lot of folks who are pro-abortion talk about is like, all of us know somebody who's had an abortion,
Yes.
right? Whether you know it or not, that is a different story, but we all know somebody who's had an abortion.
Yes, absolutely.
And so knowing how to support that person is super important.
Exactly. And the scripts that we're given, like from society, are terrible for supporting people who have abortions. Like people want to show up and support their loved ones, but we just don't have like the template for it. But we can. That is available to us. So that's something in my book as well. It's just literal like scripts for like, these are ways you can support. These are things you can say. And that's based on all of the information that I've gotten talking to people who have abortions themselves.
Yeah, I love that because people do need that. I've done a lot of working with adults in a capacity of different arenas. And the biggest thing people want when you're teaching them a new skill or teaching them a new like piece of knowledge is, don't have me come up with how I'm supposed to do this. Just give me the script. Like, tell me what I need to say. And especially for something like this, I think it can be difficult because you want to be there for the person getting an abortion, or who's had an abortion, or is going to have one. You want to be there, you want to support them. And you're also going through like that internalized messaging that you've been getting, right? Like that shame and stigma, and processing how that messaging has impacted you. And then I'm always like, but then it's not about me, but I still have to work through that so I can be the best supportive person. And having scripts like, this is what you say, this is what you do, takes all of that like kind of guesswork out of it, and just lays it right out there to like how to be the most supportive person in that moment.
Yes, absolutely. And it can be hard for people to ask for support, people who have abortions to ask for support. So I literally like write out emails for you. I'm like, here's what you can send if you need an extension on a paper. Here's what you can send to your boss, because it can feel so isolating, and to be pregnant when you don't want to be, and have to figure out all of the logistics of how to get an abortion and all of that. And so I really wanted to lighten the burden a little bit, as much as I can.
Yeah, I am obsessed with that. Honestly, I'm like, I just felt like my shoulders relaxed as you were explaining this. I'm like, wow, this is so helpful. This is really, really helpful because for me, I'm somebody who I got pregnant. I intentionally got pregnant with my spouse
Mm-hmm.
and had a baby. Um, and that in itself was terrifying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I planned that. I
Yeah.
planned that pregnancy and I went to tell like our parents that we were pregnant and I was nervous like I was going to get in trouble. It was
Yeah.
the weirdest feeling. I am a grown up. I'm a whole grown up, married grown up in a house. I own my own house like and so I can't even start to imagine what that feels like for someone who did not want to be pregnant, does not want to be pregnant, and navigating all of the systems in place in a time where access to abortion is not easy, it's not safe, it's not reliable, it's ever changing. And there's a lot of fear around that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very scary. And I think something a lot of people don't realize is that, like, if abortion is banned in your state, that means you can't access care even if you intended to remain pregnant, but you need to end the pregnancy. It doesn't matter whether you intended to be pregnant or not. Abortion bans put all pregnant people at risk.
Yeah. That's a scary part of it, that I think a lot of people are unfortunately becoming aware of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're really seeing the results of that here in Texas, where abortion is completely banned, and people have been left to bleed out in the parking lot, and that's the reality of the bans, and especially Black and Brown people, because that's who is most impacted by any kind of abortion bans, along with other marginalized people like disabled people, people who live in rural areas, immigrants, young people. Um, yeah, so it's we have to advocate for everybody. We can't leave anybody behind, and there's just no way to draw lines in a way that keeps everybody safe.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you had talked about, being in Texas. I live in New York and abortion is fairly protected here.
Yes.
And something I do as part of my reproductive justice work is remind folks here that it is safe for now.
Sure.
It is safe today.
Yeah, and there's really no such thing as a safe state, because
Yeah.
New York has a viability line, which people don't realize a lot of the time. That there are only, I think, it's currently 10 states that don't restrict based on viability lines. And even some of those states restrict access for young people. So the states without true restrictions it's a very, very small number. And so people don't realize that, like, if you had to seek care later in pregnancy, you would be forced to travel very far from your home, and it's very expensive and it's very stigmatized. And so, yeah, there's just no way to draw the lines.
Yeah. And when I say New York is like a quote unquote safe state, right?
Yeah.
Like that abortion is accessible here, but you make a really good point that there are viability laws in place and those kind of restrictions put in place that a lot of people don't think about. And you brought up a really good point because a lot of people who are very anti-abortion are like, well, someone could, terminate a pregnancy in like the 8th month of pregnancy. And it's like people are generally, I don't want to just speak in absolutes. I never like to speak in absolutes, but most people who are having an abortion in later in their pregnancy, first of all, is such a very, very small number. But second of all, it's not just because at like 8 months you decided like, you know what, actually I don't want to do this anymore. And I think I'm just gonna call it quits here. That's not the reality of what's happening in late term abortions.
yeah, as access is further restricted, like people are being forced to continue their pregnancies longer while they're trying to access care, like whether they're trying to figure out where to go, whether it's legal where they live, how to get there, how to get enough money. There's just lots of things that are pushing people later into pregnancy. But what I like to tell people is that like we don't need to know anything about the circumstances to know that everybody deserves access to safe abortion care.
Absolutely, 110%. Because I know for me, and I'm sure you get this in your life and in your social media presence too, and people are like, yeah, but what if this and what if that? Like, I don't care. I don't care what the reason is. If somebody wants an abortion, they should be able to get an abortion. And their reasoning and the justification behind it does not make a difference to that
Yeah.
access, and it should not make a difference to that access.
Okay. That's one of my earliest cakes from circa 2018. It said you don't have to justify your abortion to anyone. And it took me a long time to believe that, you know, a long time after I had my own abortion, to believe that I didn't have to come up with any kind of justification. Um, it took a long time to unlearn that, even for me, myself. It sounds unimaginable to me now, but it was the case.
I truly admire how open and honest you were in that moment right there. It's hard to imagine now because like look at how far you've come, right? Like you are this badass like social media presence who's unapologetically pro-abortion, super feminist, and now you have this book, The Abortion Companion, and it's got to be so wild to like look back at that Becca.
Yes. This is a beautiful experience for me because, you know, I like to say that this is the book that I needed at that time. And so it does feel healing to me in that way to be able to support other people, to ensure that they don't experience the same shame that I experienced myself.
Yeah. My vision for you is your vision that you mentioned. Like, I want to see this book everywhere because um I think in kind of echoing what you just said, like this is the book I needed then. This is the book that's meeting a really big moment right now in our country and globally too. Like the US is not the only country who is going through restrictive laws and policies around abortion, certainly. Um,
Yeah.
but it's helpful. It's so helpful.
Yeah, and people deserve high quality, accurate, affirming information about abortion and abortion care. And so there is a section in the book called Abortion 101, because a lot of people like go into the clinic and have no idea like what's actually going to happen. And so I like draw out the differences between a medication and a procedural abortion, and this section and a bunch of other stuff. But this section was reviewed by a provider here in Texas, a really amazing provider, Dr. Gazla Moyetti. And I learned a lot from that as well, just about abortion care. And I've heard from people that the with the book when it's in clinics, that they've seen clients like reading the book before they go back into the clinic, and that feels really beautiful to me because I think people just deserve that information without having to dig through a bunch of anti-abortion shit to get there. And that's what happens like if you Google how to get an abortion or anything like that. Like a lot of the antis pay for like ads, sponsored stuff at the top of Google, and that's like what you see when you're just trying to find care, and people should not have to deal with that garbage ever.
No, and I learned that in a previous job I worked as a sex educator in a birth control clinic, and
Mm-hmm.
we were working with like a company around our social media presence and like paid social media stuff and things like that. And so he was explaining like how basically like Google like paid Google sponsored ads work. Folks who are in the anti-abortion space I think it's important for folks to understand that they get so much money,
Yep.
so much money. A lot from the federal government, and a lot from lots of different sources. And so they pay big money so that when you, and they're not dumb on how to do this. And so they put in the keywords. So when you're searching for something, they automatically show up.
It's also like that shows up with fake clinics.
Yes.
Crisis pregnancy centers, I call them fake clinics. But there's a section in the book about how to spot fake clinics and how to avoid them, because they will do things like move in next to a real clinic or name themselves something that sounds like a real clinic. And they get tons of government money. There are way more of them than there are clinics. And they're not regulated. Like they are not bound by HIPAA. They can share they can and do share your private health information and other information outside of that clinic space. And so I also just want to affirm that if you've gone to one of those, that wasn't your fault, and I'm so sorry that they treated you that way, and you deserve so much better than that. I hate the fake clinics.
There's nothing that boils my blood faster than these fake clinics. I swear they are. Like, I'm already feeling myself be like, oh, I'm gonna fight. They are the worst.
Yes. And they're very sex negative, very shaming. And that's like another part of that I wanted to talk about. The book is that pleasure isn't the problem. You deserve pleasure. And if you end up needing abortion care, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes. I'm so glad, first of all, that you include a section about fake clinics, because so many people don't even know what they are. I do some tabling at like burlesque shows, and the crowd is generally very white, middle-aged folks. And we have pamphlets about crisis pregnancy centers. And people will be like, wait, what's a fake clinic? Because like the front of the brochure is like, what is a fake clinic? And so we explain that to them, and they're like, wait, what? And I was like, yes, they intentionally are positioned right next to like a Planned Parenthood, for example. I know in my area, I have seen them at like different kinds of like wellness events in the past. Not as much lately, but I think a lot of people who organize some of these wellness events are becoming more aware of like who they really are. But they wear like white lab coats, like doctors' coats, and they are
Yeah.
not medical professionals at all.
It's all lies. They will lie to you. They will straight up lie to your face in an effort to stop you from having an abortion. Like that is their only goal, is to stop people from having abortions.
Yeah. And they were for a long time, and I don't know if they still are, but they were advertising like an abortion reversal pill.
Which is
And
not medically, that's not a thing. It's shameful. The doctors that shill that, it's shameful.
yeah, absolutely. And you're taking someone in a very vulnerable position who just found out they're pregnant. They do not desire to continue the pregnancy. They move through shame and stigma to decide to have an abortion, and they end up unknowingly at a fake clinic. They think they're getting accurate information, and they're then made to feel worse, but they lure these people in by providing like diapers and baby supplies and all these things to help them, get started. And so you think, oh, there's like a safety net here. But that's like a very tiny safety net. These folks, do not care.
Right.
Beyond a baby being born, they don't care.
And it's the pro-abortion movement, it's the reproductive justice movement that is actually, providing that wraparound care for families, because reproductive justice is the right to parent or not in safety and with support from our communities. And so you can't separate out abortion from that. It's just one pillar of reproductive justice. And I like to say that our movement is super vibrant. Like the anti-abortion movement is so doom and gloom, but our movement is so vibrant and warm and creative and imaginative. And I love being a part of the people actually doing the work to help families.
And we have cake. Becca makes cake, y'all.
Yes, I do have a cookbook as well. It's called Baking by Feel. That was my first book. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can have cake. Do they have cake over there? I don't think so. And if they do, it probably sucks and it's dry. The other thing I love that you said is that you provide a section about like abortion 101, like what to expect. And my social anxious little heart melted when you said that, because it's so hard for a lot of people to go to something when they don't know what they're going to expect. And especially something as big as this can be for them, and might be for somebody, and not knowing what to expect and not knowing how to ask those questions about what to expect
Yes.
is changes everything. And when you were like, people reading my book in the clinic in like the waiting room so they know what to expect when they come back, oh my gosh, your heart.
Expands. Like it's amazing for me. Because I had my abortion at the Emma Goldman Clinic, an indie clinic in Iowa, and they were amazing, but I didn't bring anything with me to like read or do, so I just watched reruns of Golden Girls. That's what was on in the TV in there. So yeah, my book would have helped me in that situation in particular. But to go back to the fake clinics, a way to tell if you're going to a real clinic or a fake clinic is to check on ineedana.com. That's like the best place to find information about how to access care no matter where you live.
Yes. And I don't know if this is national or if this is a resource that is just local to like my area, but there are resources, and I will put some in the show notes of this episode of where folks are like compiling a list specifically of fake clinics as well. And so there's the two ways, right? And if you're somebody who's listening to this who does like wellness fairs and events and things like that, being aware of who these folks are and how harmful they are to the people I'm assuming you want to attract to your event is important. It's important to know where to go. ineedana.com is so good. They have a very good, robust list of places that are reputable and are safe to go to, instead of just like a generic Google search. And I'm seeing so much pop up like similar to that, like where to find information about how to access an abortion. We need that right now more than ever.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this is my least favorite time because we could go on and on and on all day, Becca. But before we wrap up, I would love if you have some parting advice for the listeners.
See, I think something that I'm personally working on right now is learning how to like set down the burden when it's too heavy, like this work to help people who have abortions. If you're doing any kind of similar work, I think it's so important to like put the burden down sometimes and let other people carry it for a while, and then pick it back up. And that's sort of why I do the baking and the repro work in tandem, is because I think you have to hold the light with the dark. You can't stay in either all of the time. So yeah, I think just this is a long haul, but there are always people here to help and support you.
I love that. That's such a good reminder for those of us who work in this space. It's not easy and it's not glamorous all the time, and it's heavy. It's a lot. And taking that moment to step back is lovely. I truly appreciate you and all the information to support Becca, the work that she does, and of course go buy the book, The Abortion Companion. All of that information will be in the show notes. And again, thank you for sharing a part of you that society tells you you shouldn't share, and for helping others to have such an incredible supportive experience. And I just appreciate you being in the world so much.
Thank you. That's so very kind. Thank you for having me on the pod. I am so grateful for the work that you're doing here as well. And yeah, thank you so much.